Hi, B&J students. So let's practice some more conversation questions. This is how often do you? How often do you? All right, so I'm going to help you answer these, and then I want you to make a question as well. So, number one, how often do you travel? Sometimes. So, I sometimes travel. I sometimes travel. Now, what about question with your father? Can you make a question with that? How often does your father travel? He sometimes travels. Okay, number two. How often do you go to bed at 2 a.m.? Always. I always go to bed at 2 a.m. What about his grandmother? Good. How often does his grandmother go to bed? She always, how? So, how often does your grandmother go to bed at 2 a.m.? She always goes to bed at 2 a.m. What about she doesn't? She never goes to bed at 2 a.m. Good. Number three, how often do you go to the dentist? Never. I never go to the dentist. What about a question with your friend? How often does your friend go to the dentist? He never goes to the dentist. He never goes to the dentist. Number four, how often do you study? Often. I often study. Or I study often. I often study. So, how often do you study? I often study. I often study. What about my sister? How often does my sister study? My sister often studies. Or she never studies. Number five, how often do you eat candies? I usually eat candy. I usually eat candy. How often? Your dog. How about your dog? How often does your dog eat candies? My dog usually eats candies. My dog usually eats candies. Number six, how often do you go to the doctor? Seldom. So remember seldom. Seldom is here, so about 25 to 10% of the time. How often do you go to the doctor? Seldom. I seldom go to the doctor. What about your mom's mother? Your mom's mother. How often does your mom's mother go to the doctor? She seldom goes to the doctor. Number seven, how often do you say I love you to your parents? Always. I always say I love you to my parents. What about your cat? How often does your cat say I love you to your parents? My cat always says I love you to my parents. Or never, because cats can't talk. Maybe it meows I love you. Number eight, how often do you study English? Rarely. I rarely study English. Her friends. What about her friends? How often do her friends study English? They rarely study English. Good. Number 9. How often do you practice sports? Never. I never practice sports. What about their father? How often does their father practice sports? He never practices sports. He never practices sports. Number 10. How often do you brush your teeth? Sometimes. I sometimes brush my teeth. What about your little sister? How often does your little sister brush her teeth? She sometimes brushes her teeth. Number 11. How often do you listen to music? Never. The monkey. Oops. The monkey. How often does the monkey read? The monkey seldom reads. Seldom reads. Number 13. How often do you go to the shopping mall? Sometimes. I sometimes go to the shopping mall. Your sister and her friends. How often do your sister and her friends go to the shopping mall? They sometimes go to the shopping mall. Number 14. How often do you buy clothes? Often. I often buy clothes. I often buy clothes. Your mom. How often does your mom buy clothes? She often buys clothes. She loves to go shopping. 15. How often do you eat fast food? Rarely. I rarely eat fast food. Our cousin. Our cousin. How often does our cousin eat fast food? He rarely eats fast food, or she rarely eats fast food. Number 16. How often do you have English classes? Always. I always have English classes. What about your classmate? How often does your classmate have English classes? He always has English classes. Okay, number 17. How often do you go out with your friends? Usually. I usually go out with my friends. What about? Your older brother. How often does your older brother go out with his friends? He usually goes out with his friends. Number 18. How often do you go to the movies? Sometimes. I sometimes go to the movies. What about her grandparents? How often do her grandparents go to the movies? They sometimes go to the movies. Number 19. How often do you go for a walk? Never. I never go for a walk. their mom? How often does their mom go for a walk? She never goes for a walk. Alright, number 20, the last one. How often do you use the internet? Seldom. I seldom use the internet. Their pet pig. How often does their pet pig use the internet? Their pet pig seldom uses the internet. I don't think a pig can use the internet. Okay, practice with some questions of your own, and see you later. Bye.